Hey guys! In this video coming up, I actually have two awesome nightstands that I built from scratch. Yeah, with my hands. And wood. And glue. And screws. And all that fun stuff. I actually used these nightstands as a little bit of inspiration on this build. Everything else, I kind of just figured it out as I went. So definitely subscribe down below. Hit that bell so you get a notification when I post new videos. And enjoy! All right, let's get started. So before you start anything, you've got to have some lumber and cut it to dimension. So I had a cut list ready to go and I ran everything through the chop saw. And then after that, I ran it through the table saw. Before I ran everything through the table saw, I actually ran it through the jointer first. You want to make sure you have a really straight square edge before you start milling up lumber. So that's exactly what I did right here. Ran everything first through the jointer and then ripped everything down on the table saw. As far as furniture designs go, these were actually pretty simple. So once everything was milled up, I then decided on spacing and the dimensions. I am a visualist at heart, and once I had everything milled up, it was much easier for me to see and see what looked best. So once I had that figured out, I moved on to sanding. And sanding is so much easier, guys, to do beforehand instead of having to work around tight corners once everything's assembled. As far as assembly goes, I actually used a combination of pocket holes as well as half lap joints. Once I had all the pocket hole joinery done, I moved on to my half lap joints. To do the half laps, I used a dado stack. It actually just made the process go a little bit quicker. This was my first time using the dado stack, so I was actually pretty nervous to use it, but equally as excited. So I put together two blades, and what that does is it cuts at 1/4 inch thickness versus having to take multiple swipes using just a regular table saw blade. Here I'm actually just making some adjustable shelf pins. So I used the Kreg jig and put in 4 different heights for the shelves. And these are actually the cuts that I did on the dado stack. I guess these aren't half lap joints, guys. I don't know what they are, some type of joinery. But if you see that little lippage that I have there, I actually just need to lower the blade just a hair to take off more wood so those line up perfectly even. But this is the type of joinery that I used on all of the sides for the side rails. So right here I'm actually just gluing it all up and then clamping it. So it's going to have to sit overnight to have the glue set up. And I checked, rechecked, made sure everything was square, because the last thing I want to do is have the glue dry and have the piece not be squared. Here I have some 1/4 inch plywood that I'm ripping down for the sides and the back. While I waited for the bases to dry, I moved on to the tops. These were actually 2 glue ups that I had from a previous build that I never started, so they actually worked out perfect. I had to rip off just about 1 inch off of each side, and once I ripped it down, I moved on to adding some nice trim detail along all 4 sides with my rigid trim router. Once I had everything routed, as you can see, I had to take multiple passes on each side just because it was a lot of wood to handle in one pass. So once that was all done, I moved on to sanding. I don't know what's more pleasurable to watch, the trim routing or sanding off that dark stain. I loved watching both of it over again. I'm actually just cutting up a little bit more wood for each of the shelves for the tables. And just a simple glue up here. Use your handy dandy glue spreader, aka your index finger. Not sure why I used to buy brushes for that, because your finger works just as well. Moving on to the drawer slides. I was actually going to use drawer slides or make some sort of slide, but I decided to just keep it simple and attached a little bit extra pieces of wood with some pocket holes, and that's where the drawer is going to slide. A little bit of furniture wax and it'll work just fine. Now this is where I started the table starting to come together with all of the base molding and molding detail that I added. So I put the molding on all 4 sides of the tables, well, 2 sides of each of the tables, and then the base molding on the bottom. Another place I decided to add a little bit of detail was on the drawer fronts. So again, with my rigid trim router, I put in a V-groove router bit and just routed in a couple simple grooves. Nothing crazy, but it added a little nice detail to it. After that, I moved on to making the drawers. Here I am cutting in a notch for where the plywood will sit. Took a couple different passes because I needed to get it a little bit thicker than a table saw blade, and then put the drawers together. Sand them first, again, much easier to sand before it's assembled, and then just glue and brad nails. Nothing crazy, no dovetails, no joinery. Glue gets it done. Once all the drawers were assembled, I moved on to paint. I love once I get to the painting stage because I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And my paint sprayer, guys, is from Harbor Freight. It cost me 20 bucks. Yeah, you can buy a Graco, you can buy a Wagner, what's the other one? Fuji. But for 20 bucks, you can't really go wrong. And the final piece of the puzzle is just putting the hardware on. I made just a quick little jig to make sure that the holes were centered and aligned perfectly, drilled the holes, and attached the cup style hardware. And that was it. All right, guys, what do we think? Like the paint color? Do we like the hardware, the details? Comment below. I want to hear what you have to say. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I like to hear it all. Constructive criticism is part of the journey. But stay tuned, because next I have a hope chest, a cedar hope chest, that was in desperate need of some Sell Vintage love. I can't wait for you guys to see the transformation on this one. But definitely subscribe down below if you liked this video. I have a couple of other flips up on my channel. So there is a hutch flip that I'll stick up here, and then a nice chippy refinish table that I'll stick down here. So check those out if you haven't. Thanks for watching.